Being lucky enough to have grown up in the 1980s, I was exposed to some of the best toys ever made. And I think it's pretty clear that my favorite toy of everything were Star Wars action figures. And when Hasbro/Kenner decided to start putting out new figures in the mid-90s, I was all in. Well, at first I only bought Chewbacca, but that's a YouTube video for another time. The point is, I said, I'm going to make up for not having all the toys as a kid because they all turn into Cabbage Patch Kids. And I'm going to recreate the vintage line in a modern way, which I'm still trying to do because Simaloo has not been released yet. Hasbro, make it happen. But what I want to talk about today is when we turn to eBay, which is effectively called Evil Bay by collectors, when they need to complete their collection. And, well, what is the stigma about this? Why is it that it's considered bad form? What is the failure point that drives someone to purchase from eBay? Well, obviously, if you're at retail and you're confused or can't find what you're looking for, well, if you have to have something because you are a completist, as I noted, as I am with Star Wars 3 3/4 Classic Trilogy, well, sometimes eBay becomes a last resort. But again, there's a stigma to this. As collectors, as adult collectors, we feel that, if you're turning to eBay, you are supporting scalping, which in no doubt, that does happen on eBay, and by far toys are one of the tiniest categories of this. Just look at electronics, purses, and, all sorts of luggage and jewelry. But it does happen with toys, and usually with toys, it's more of someone hitting a retailer early in the morning, buying everything, leaving blank aisles, and then reselling the items for more. Now, people, of course, asked both retailers and eBay to try to stop this, and as you can see from the 11 people that signed this petition, well, it's not really something that retailers or eBay or even manufacturers are in a place to do something about. Just watch the video I made, and I'll link it at the end of this one, about how manufacturers and retailers look at scalpers. Here's a hint. They're customers. All right, so aside from that, as adult collectors, we are a unique brand of people. Obviously because, well, we are accumulating child playthings and having a sense of accomplishment through buying them. Now, I'm including myself here, so in no way is this anything but a compliment to our amazing hobby. And I have personally spent over 20, 30 years assembling my collection, all of these Rebel pilots. You can't just go out and buy them today. No, this took years and years to accomplish. And that's where some of the stigma from eBay comes from. So how did you accomplish this? There's one thing about finding something out in the wild, like if you happen to find blueberries, for example, or, you happen to find snozberries.
The snozberries taste like snozberries.
Wonka's actually a lot darker than you realize. You know that a snozberry is a testicle? Not to mention the fact that, that boat? There was no seat for Augustus Gloop on that boat.
Help. Police. Murder.
Okay, totally off topic. We're talking about Willy Wonka, and we should be talking about eBay and why, as adult collectors, we put this stigma not just on buying from eBay, but on the people who do buy and sell on eBay, as if they've committed some horrid crime. Now, just to make sure we're on a level playing field, I have absolutely sold things on eBay. But I will caveat that it's all things I've owned, that I've bought myself, and I would say 90% of the things I've sold on eBay have been extra parts of things that I don't want. And I think that if you go and you buy something at full price, you're keeping, 80% of it and selling off whatever you don't want. That doesn't really count as scalping. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me that's just more getting rid of things you don't want. But I don't want to be the whole, calling the kettle purple and the spoon that dips in it orange. I want to make sure that you're aware that I use eBay, because if I'm making a commentary on it and the status. All right, so back to our blueberries metaphor. Oh, just sticking with blueberries here. Finding something in the wild that's amazing and awesome, well, there's a feeling of accomplishment there. And as adult toy collectors, a lot of us don't have a group of these kind of things sitting on our shelf. I mean, maybe we do, and there's nothing wrong with having, actual trophies for accomplishing things. But adult toy collectors tend to not really be the sports kid. And more or less, this is our trophy shelf. Our trophy shelf is looking at a full collection that, again, whether it's Marvel Legends, 6-inch, Star Wars, Thundercats, Transformers, Gundam, whatever it is, a complete collection says, I'm dedicated and I'm accomplished. Now, buying on eBay versus buying from a retailer, that's basically like adjusting the difficulty setting on a video game, right? Where buying from eBay is super simple. I mean, it's just a matter of forking out the money. You can basically buy almost anything. But finding it at retail, well, that's like, hunting out in the wild, and it takes skill and perseverance and a funny-looking hat. And if you can accomplish this on top of getting a complete collection, well, it's like you've earned extra prestige. Your collection isn't just, an awesome collection, it's a total win. It's like when you play the video games, and you get an absolute perfect score because, well, you didn't have to dip into eBay once. Now, I've attempted this. This was always my goal when I was specifically collecting Star Wars 3 and 3/4. See, I told you I was going to connect back to that. Did I even tell you that? Okay, well, I'm going to connect back to that. So the idea was I was never going to turn to the dark side and buy anything Star Wars 3 and 3/4 from eBay. My goal was to find every single thing at retail. And so pinpointing that moment when you turn to the dark side and you turn to eBay, why is it? I mean, it was, this moment, right, when, he killed the Tusken Raiders. I think it's pretty clear. Hashtag Tuskens are people too, Anakin. All right, so when you turn to eBay to complete a collection, there's usually a major reason for that. And that's what I want to throw out to the collector base. And I'll tell you what my sort of breaking point was, if you will, because it's actually pretty, I think, interesting in terms of the hobby. So as I said, I'm a completionist, which means I'm buying every figure, and if you miss one, well, the consequences, you may wind up having to pay a lot for it down the line, or maybe, you're lucky, and like most Power of the Force 2 Wave 1 figures, you can still get them at retail, but we didn't know that at the time. But as a completionist, I will buy the same character over and over and over again, regardless of how much has changed. Well, I guess I have minimum requirements for that. Maybe a total paint deco will do that, but yeah, I'm not going to buy a direct re-release. All right, so what's my specific story? Well, back when I was a little girl in college, I was not near any toy hunting. I went to school in Santa Barbara, California, which was a beautiful, beautiful place. Absolutely loved it, got a great education. I wound up getting 2 majors in 4 years. And the closest Toys R Us was an hour plus away in Ventura. And I would definitely hit it up and down when I would drive to see my parents down in Orange County, which was like a 3.5-hour drive. Hey, it was a good resting point. So was the one in Rosencrantz in Los Angeles. I kind of made all my resting points different Toys R Us's whenever I drove home or to college. How many of you guys did that? All right. But yes, so if I wanted to go to a Toys R Us, and believe me, I did. I was there for the Phantom Menace, Midnight Madness, and somehow wound up on the front of the Simi Valley Star. But yeah, that's where I had to go. And because as a toy collector, I couldn't toy hunt, eventually, I think by sophomore year of college, not being able to find anything and seeing all this stuff pass me by, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm breaking all my rules, and I'm going to buy an action figure off eBay. I know I'm going to pay a higher price. It was this. It was Jabba's skiff guards. I remember exactly, because actually I even remember getting this, having it arrive at college, because, when you get a package in college, it's always significant, because you have to, go, down to the post office or the student center, wherever, packages usually aren't delivered to dorms. And I even remember this was the student center at UCSB, and I remember going up to the second or third floor balcony, which is exactly this balcony here, and I knew what this package was, and I opened it slowly, pulled out the figures one by one. I remember this moment because it was the first time I broke down and bought something off eBay, but it was also, the first time I got new figures in like a year. So, it took that. It took that much of a drought. Of course, a few months later, I also picked up Admiral Mahdi, also off eBay, for the same reasons. I was in college, and I just could not get to toy stores to hunt. And it came to that, pay a little extra or go without. And as a completist, we all know we can only go so long before we go without. And that's why I turned to the dark side and started a few figures off of eBay. What about you? What are your stories? Have you made promises not to buy items secondhand but have broken down and done that? Let me know in the comments below. Any help sharing this video with others is so much appreciated. It's the best way to show support for this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.